back to what I was saying. You've heard the statement, you are what you eat. But it's a little more complicated than that because you are what you put on your skin, too. Your body actually absorbs it. Your skin is the largest organ on your body, and it does absorb what you put on it. And so if you're putting toxins on it, your body's absorbing that. If you're putting nutritious products on it, your body's absorbing that. So rather than just being careful what we ingest, we also need to be careful what we put on our skin. And is Doc in yet? Doc? Okay. Well, I don't know how many of you realize this, but your deodorant could very possibly be toxic. And the top 5 toxic ingredients that are hiding in your deodorant are aluminum, which is linked to breast cancer in women, prostate cancer in men, and also an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. And there's the second ingredient is parabens, which disrupt our delicate hormone balance, and it can also lead to things like early puberty in children and a risk in hormonal cancer. The third ingredient is propylene glycol, and it can cause damage to your central nervous system, your liver, and your heart. And the fourth ingredient is phthalates. I don't even know how to say that, but it is linked to a higher risk of birth defects, and it also may disrupt hormone receptors, and it can increase the likelihood of cell mutation. And then the fifth ingredient is atriclosan, atriclosan. Can't say that one either. But it's classified as a pesticide by the FDA, and it's also classified as a probable carcinogen by the EPA. So these are ingredients that are in a lot of your deodorants. And it looks like we've got Doc on the call. So you all know Doc, and you know how smart he is, and he does his research. And I'm going to just flip it to him and let him go a little bit further. Doc?
Okay, thank you, Linda. As Linda was saying, a lot of the ingredients that we're finding in most any antiperspirant or deodorant on the market are either toxic or harmful in some way. Now, most of them that are just a deodorant, that are not an antiperspirant, you will not find with aluminum in them. The aluminum is the ingredient that is used to stop you from sweating. The problem with that is that aluminum, when it redeposits in the body, it's absorbed readily through the skin, and when it redeposits in the body, it deposits in fatty tissues. That's why with women you see so many instances of breast cancer that can be linked to the aluminum sulfate in their deodorant. I mean, if you think about it, you've got lymph glands right underneath your arms where you're spreading this stuff. It goes directly into the bloodstream and then redeposits in these fatty tissues. And the way that we found out that aluminum was redepositing this way, when they finally started doing lumpectomies for cancer rather than full mastectomies on women, taking just the lump instead of the entire breast, they started examining these lumps to see what they consisted of other than just cancerous cells. And they found that in most instances, at the heart of that tumor, there would be this black spot. And it took them a while to figure out what that black spot was aluminum. If you've ever been around or been working with aluminum plate or something of that nature and you rub it against your skin, it makes that black mark. It's the same thing inside these tumors. And what happens, the reason that the cancer can attack around that is that aluminum deoxygenates a cell. Now, if I could be assured, if I had put you on a regimen of antioxidants and could be assured that every single cell in your body was well oxygenated, I could inject cancerous cells directly into your veins, and they would die, and they would starve to death and die because cancerous cells cannot attack and cannot overtake a healthy, well-oxygenated cell in your body. The same thing with prostate cancer in men. There are fat deposits around the prostate in a man. So when that aluminum redeposits, it's going to redeposit in those fatty tissues. And again, you get that little heart of aluminum that will gather together. It will form that deoxygenated group of cells that are then vulnerable to any cancerous cells that they come in contact with. Now, once cancer has been established, once it has had those first few cells to attack, then it begins to mutate to where it can attack healthy cells. But at first, cancer can't attack healthy cells in the body that are well oxygenated. Now, one of the other ingredients she talked about, propylene glycol. There has been a lot of argument over propylene glycol recently, and a lot of people are hawking this as being a safe ingredient in things. Because once it's taken into the body, whether it is through absorption through the skin, a lot of people that are trying to get off smoking are using these electric cigarettes. That is a solution of either propylene glycol or triethylene glycol that forms the vapor, and they're taking it in through their lungs. Now, they say that the liver can metabolize it within 4 hours and then get rid of it, and that part of it is true. Yes, your liver can metabolize propylene glycol in as little as 4 hours, but the problem is, in the 4 hours that it's in your body, it does an amazing amount of damage. And the process of your liver trying to metabolize that propylene glycol, the larger amounts that you have, the more damage it does to the liver. And there have actually been cases where people that accidentally ingested larger quantities of propylene glycol suffered liver failure because of the propylene glycol in their system. Now, when I first started using the crystal deodorant, I was like a lot of people, it didn't have any smell to it, so I thought, okay, it's not going to work. And I was still sweating, but it didn't, because it didn't have any kind of antiperspirant, anything in it to stop you from sweating. But the problem with perspiration, it's not the sweat that makes you stink. It's the bacteria that grows because of the sweat. And the salt and mineral supplements that are in the crystal deodorant simply stop bacteria from growing. If you don't have bacteria, you don't have odor. And beyond using it for deodorants, I know of people that have had problems with scalding in certain places on their body. They've used it there to stop that from happening. I've known people that have had problems with their feet smelling. We all have jokes about somebody that can take off their shoes and clear a room. And one fellow that I had got to try this, he started using it on his feet as a deodorant for his feet. Because when he tried using other types of deodorant, he tried sprays, he tried rubs and so whatever, to use them on his feet would always break out, and he would actually have cracks and splits in his feet, to where his feet would actually start bleeding because of it. And so he began using the crystal deodorant on his feet. He had no problem with the splits in his skin or anything of that nature, and the odor problem that he had with his feet is gone. And he no longer has that problem because he didn't have athlete's foot, he just had smelly feet. And athlete's foot is actually a fungal growth, and the salt base that is in our crystal deodorant can also help to prevent fungal growth as well, because it changes the pH of our sweat and so forth to the point that the paramecium that normally would grow there cannot, because it has to have a certain pH range, and the salt destroys that pH range so that it doesn't do that. The other thing that I noticed, when I first ordered the crystal deodorant, I thought, well, this is kind of expensive. It was like $8-9 for a bar of, deodorant. And I thought, well, I can buy one downtown for $2 or $3. It's quite a bit different. And then a year and a half later, when I finally had to order the second one, I realized the value of these things. I've been in the business for over 2 years. I'm finally on my second crystal deodorant. And they last so incredibly long. The other thing that I love about them is where they don't have a scent to them. You know, we've all been around people that they smell like they just walked out of a perfume factory because of the deodorants or sprays or whatever that they're using, and it can actually become so overpowering that it's a little bit sickening. And I love the fact that it has no odor to it. You are not going to, it's very, very, very inexpensive compared to anything else you're going to buy. And it does not have all of those carcinogenic and harmful chemicals in it that are used in most deodorants out there. And I went through, a friend of mine and I were talking about this. We happened to be in a department store at the time. And we went through trying to find a deodorant that did not have either aluminum or aluminum sulfate labeled as the first or second ingredients in the deodorant. And we spent over an hour looking at labels. It was crazy. Everybody thought we were nuts because we're reading all these labels on all these different deodorants. We could not find a single one that was listed as an antiperspirant that didn't list aluminum or aluminum sulfate as the very first or second ingredient in the ingredient list. Now, aluminum is fine if you want to build something to, contain something that you're not going to eat, or if you need it for some deck plating or whatever, but please don't use it in your body. It is one of the worst things in the world that you can possibly use. And a lot of places that people stop thinking about aluminum is the aluminum cans, of course. A lot of us are drinking sodas and things of that nature. They all come in aluminum cans. Get rid of them. Don't utilize them. Or old-style hand-hammered aluminum cookware. A lot of people are still using that stuff. And there has been a massive increase in the instances of Alzheimer's disease since we started using aluminum for cookware and containers and things of that nature. When it was Alzheimer's was originally called dementia precox. And it has been around for literally hundreds of years, but the instance of it happening was very, very, very rare. It was almost unheard of until during the industrial age when we started utilizing aluminum as cookware, containers, things of this nature. And then there was an exponential growth in the amount of Alzheimer's patients that we had. We then started using aluminum in various cosmetics, deodorants, things of this nature. All of these things that we're using aluminum in that are being introduced into our bodies. And the rates of cancer, of course, have skyrocketed since that time and so forth. But the cancer can be attributed to a lot of other things, but with the dementia precox, or as it is now called, Alzheimer's, there's a direct correlation between the time frame on when we started using aluminum so readily and the increase of Alzheimer's in people today. And a lot of problems with the brain, we are finding, are affected by aluminum in a very, very drastic way, not just Alzheimer's. Short-term memory loss, problems in cognitive thinking, things of this nature that we never thought about before, we never considered them to be a problem before, are now becoming more and more of a problem. And there is a lot of research that's saying that these are direct correlations to aluminum being used in containers, health and beauty products, things of that nature. And I have become a label reader, and it amazes me how many products beyond just deodorant, there's a lot of them out there, especially cosmetics, that contain aluminum. And the reason that it is used so commonly, first of all, it's very, very cheap. And secondly, it does stop you from perspiring. The problem with that is your body was intended to perspire when it gets hot. If it doesn't, you're shutting down a natural function of your body. Now, nobody wants to stink, so, okay, you don't want to smell bad, fine. Use a deodorant that doesn't have this in it, and that's where our crystal deodorants come in. You can use them. You can either use the type that have the scent to them, or you can use the stick style, the ones that have the actual mineral crystal. That is the one I use. I don't use any of the scented ones. I use the crystal myself. And like I said, having been in the business for over 2 years, I finally ordered my second one. The first one lasted me a little over a year and a half. And I'm one of these people that a lot of times I wind up showering 2 or 3 times a day. So I was using it on a regular basis. If it'll last that long for me, it's probably going to last a little longer for most people. And I challenge you to find any deodorants, any antiperspirant, anywhere on the market that anyone else sells that you can use for a year and a half for $8 or $9. Okay, go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, Doc. I was just wondering, on this, it says it's aluminum. It stops. The purpose of it is to stop wetness. So
yes.
There's been several times throughout my life that I've been somewhere, maybe watching somebody doing a presentation or giving a talk somewhere, and they raise their arms and they got a great big wet spot underneath their armpit, and it looks very embarrassing. And it looks bad. So what does our deodorant have something in there that's going to stop the wetness so that you're not embarrassed to raise your arms when you're out in public somewhere?
No, it is not going to stop the wetness. That's the problem with aluminum, is that it does stop that wetness. That wetness is a natural function of your body. It is supposed to be there.
Your body will sweat for a couple different reasons. One reason it sweats is if you're too hot. Your body will sweat to cool you down. But another reason your body sweats or perspires is if you've got toxins, it sloughs off these toxins through your sweat. And I have noticed on me that when I use toxic deodorants, I sweat a lot more. And so when I use these deodorants that we have, and we have about 9 different of these deodorants that don't have the aluminum in them, I don't sweat very much anymore.
Yeah, I was just
so
going to mention
it does have that effect on me.
Yeah, a lot of guys that will use an antiperspirant under their arms, they'll go ahead and be able to stop the sweating in their armpits, but then they get nervous or warm or whatever, and their chest is drenched, and it's coming off their forehead in buckets because they've now, not only are they hot and so forth, they've also got all these toxins in their system. So, okay, maybe they don't have wet spots under their arms, but they got greasy hair because they've been sweating like a hog underneath it, and their chest is soaked. So, the toxins that are in deodorants and antiperspirants from downtown can actually cause you to sweat more. And most people, if they're not putting those toxins in their system on a regular basis, will find, especially over a period of time, the longer you use it, the better it's going to be, that the amount of sweat that they're putting out is a lot less. Not because the deodorant is putting anything in there to stop it, but because it's not putting in all of those toxins that are causing it.
Right. All right, we're going to flip the call over to Jack now. He has a fun, unique experience with these products. And so, Jack, are you there?
I'm here. I have a couple of different experiences to share with. I also have a few things in my little topic that touch on the exact same things that Doc was talking about. One of the experiences, my daughter, I love her to death. She's my little princess, of course. Unfortunately, when she hit puberty, she started to smell like a dead skunk's butt. I love her to death, but there's no real other way to put it. We actually had to take her into the doctor to have something done. We got her on a regular schedule of washing and cleaning herself, and it just didn't seem to get any better. As a matter of fact, she got worse as the year went on through her puberty. They actually ended up having to prescribe a clinical strength deodorant spray for her to use after she showered every day. In this little vial, it looks like a eyeglass cleaning kit, one of the old style ones that had that little spray bottle that you spritz up into the air, and it's called Hypercare. I looked at the ingredients on this thing, and my first thought was, oh my God, she's going to have breast cancer tomorrow. It's just scary, scary stuff. Well, my other story involves my girlfriend, who is an allergic reaction to metals. Her reaction is so severe that if a belt buckle, for instance, rubs against her stomach while she's sitting in a car, a matter of a half hour touching that, we get to where we're going, and she's got a rash. Looks like somebody's taken a strawberry and just stuck it to her skin right where that belt buckle has touched her. Rings, for instance. We started ring shopping, looking for the engagement ring, the wedding ring, things like that. I wouldn't call myself a cheapskate, but man, I love to save money. And unfortunately, her metal allergies mean I've got to go for the really expensive jewelry. If she gets in contact with anything that's, say, plated or under a certain carat weight, 18 karat gold, if it's anything less than that, she breaks out. So she has to have those. A metal reaction or a skin reaction to metals is called contact dermatitis. There's an actual physical condition for that. Back to my daughter's story, however, the stuff that they put inside of this little spray. Well, one of the ingredients, the main ingredient in it, is called aluminum chloride hexahydrate, and that's 20% by volume. I started thinking, what in the heck is this stuff? I know that aluminum zirconium is in underarm deodorant, and that's not good for you. What is this stuff? Well, I started looking into it, and it turns out that unlike aluminum zirconium tetrachloride, or GLY, that they put in normal underarm deodorant, this stuff, when I looked it up on the internet, actually came back with an MSDS materials standard data sheet. I don't know if too many of you are familiar with what that is. To give you a hint, if you've ever been behind a Praxair welding truck or a fuel tanker on the freeway, a fuel tanker will have a little placard on the back of it with 4 squares in the shape of a diamond. And these squares will be color-coded, and they'll have numbers inside of them. Well, each of those tell of the chemical composition of what they're carrying, the materials they will react to, and how to stop the chemical reaction. That's what those shields are actually for. Whether it be liquid nitrogen, oxygen, whether it be propane, butane, actual fuel, diesel fuel, all of those things have the MSDS, Material Standards Data Sheet, attached with them. If you see the vehicles on the road, they actually carry a special classification for CDL drivers, meaning you have to take a materials safety course in order to have one of those placards on your vehicle. So even truck drivers have to be specially trained how to deal with the chemicals inside of them. This is called a hazmat license, or hazardous materials. Okay, so this little bottle right here I've got in my hand, actually, when I looked up the ingredient on that, it comes back saying that this stuff has an MSDS, and it is corrosive. it has hazard warnings on it saying that it reacts to water. I don't know about any of you, but we were just talking about moisture in the underarmed area. That means that this stuff they just prescribed for my daughter, who's barely a teen, is now prescribed something that mixes with water corrosively, reacts with water. It's actually on the definition, it says, in high humidity, it smokes or smolders. When in direct contact with water, it hisses and fizzles. Actual words they used in the description of this. Okay? This stuff reacts violently with water. One of the main substances now coming out of your body in the form of sweat. Other things that it actually reacts to is aluminum fluoride, aluminum bromide, and aluminum iodide. All three create really, really toxic gases and really toxic fluids, all of them consisting of an acidic level. This acidic level on this thing is actually rated as a 2. The battery acid in old-style batteries in your car is rated as a 3, which means this stuff is actually worse for you than the battery acid in your car. But it gets better. When it mixes with water in your body, it creates iron chloride baron trifluoride, which is a form of acid that creates electricity. They use this to create hydrolysis in liquid fluids inside of batteries. You will find this as one of the main compounds or components for aluminum chloride. You will find them inside of any AA 9 volts ACD or any other type of battery, which means my daughter basically has created electricity in her armpit, which honestly doesn't sound like a good idea to me. It sounds really, really bad. Okay, well, bottom line, both of them are using the crystal deodorant. My daughter, believe it or not, I can walk up and give her a hug any day of the week, and I'm not offended by the odor I find. My girlfriend absolutely has not. She had a reaction in her lymph nodes under her arms. She hasn't had a reaction since she started using that. She smells close enough to get, or smells good enough to get close to on my end. There's really been no adverse reaction whatsoever with that. I've even used them myself, and surprisingly, I don't smell either. So, yeah, just to cut things short, yeah, I absolutely swear by them. These things are wonderful, wonderful.
And you use the solid stick deodorant, the crystal stick?
Yeah.
Can you tell exactly how you work those? What do you have to do with those when you get them?
The crystals are actually kind of interesting. You take a shower like normal. You use your regular soaps. You use whatever you use on a normal basis. You get out and towel off. Make sure that you're completely dry. Make sure your armpit's dry. You take the crystal, run it underneath the tap, just a couple of times across the tap, and then apply it to your underarm. 2 or 3 passes, you're good to go. It couldn't be much simpler. It's not any different than using a regular deodorant. It's just, I do it just before I shave. You go to shave my face and just run that under the tap, under the arms. I'm good to go.
And how long does that protection last?
I actually tried it out the first time thinking, yeah, right, this isn't going to work. I'm going to stink to high heaven by the end of the day. Day 3, I noticed an odor. So I would tell just about anybody, if you really wanted to, you could probably stretch it out over 2 days between applications.
Well, that would be a good one to take camping with you.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, but it was. I had to see whether or not it actually worked. I needed to know, and some of the best ways to find out is to test it to its limits.
All right. Well, thank you, Jack. And just so everybody knows, we have 9 different deodorant products, and some of them are the crystals, like we've been speaking about. But we also have some liquid roll-ons that are made with the crystals, and I've been using those. I've had a lot of good success with the crystal lavender and white tea roll-on, and it's helped me a ton. And normally I sweat, and I don't sweat with this either. And even though it's just a deodorant and not an antiperspirant, it does help me in that category, and I believe it's because I'm not excreting the toxins. But we have several different ones for you to try out, and I suggest you just grab a couple of them and try them out and see what works for you. And we are way over our time tonight, so I'd like to thank you all for being on the call tonight, and we'll catch you next week. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.